welcome to the 11th episode of the BestYou channel. My name is Mimi Picasso. I'm an engineer in computer science, a designer, an entrepreneur, and among other things, I love biotech, biomedicine, and all those hacks that make us have a greater, longer, and safer life. And today's episode is gonna be dedicated to another supplement or nutrient from the plant world that I love very much, and I don't use it daily, but I would recommend for anyone to use it daily or to use it consistently, because as my other previous compounds or supplements in the nootropic and supplement stacking episodes I've been doing, this one particularly goes in a broad spectrum of things that can help repair, can help invigorate, and can help extend in our whole body. And let me tell you which compound or supplement I'm talking about today, and it's nothing else than sulforaphane. Okay, you might think all these names I'm bringing to my episodes are not common, and maybe they are not, but eventually once you realize and when you study them, you will get very familiar with them, and you will realize how important and how common they should be for the medical world, for the nutrient and nootropic world, and for any person that wants to be and keep being healthy. So let me repeat again. What's the name? It's called sulforaphane, or you can find it as Sfn in many supplementation stacking and many supplementation products. Either way, what is it? Simply, sulforaphane is a natural compound found in plants, especially cruciferous. So if you're thinking about them, yes, broccoli, my favorite of all vegetables in the world, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and also kale, cabbage, and so other, like bok choy, contain sulforaphane. From all of these, the bigger spectrum and the bigger range is found in broccoli, and especially broccoli sprouts and broccoli seeds. So what is it? As I said, is a natural compound, which is a sulfur nutrient compound in these vegetables, and as its name says, sulforaphane, right? And then also is a phytochemical. So as many other phytochemicals have a great spectrum of effects in our body. It's not only in the plants, and it's not only in animals that have been researched and trialed with, but also in humans. Although how in humans it's bioavailable or how in humans it's produced is different while you consume the, let's say, plant per se directly or the supplementation. Either way, let's go and let's dive deep in why I love sulforaphane so much and why this is my third episode on supplements, because I think along with NAC and along with astaxanthin, so it's let's say it's from the three best worlds. So NAC comes eventually from our whole bodies because we produce it by ourselves, NAC, and then we have astaxanthin that comes from the sea world. And let's go now from the air or the plant world, and that's sulforaphane. That's my very best number one from the plant world or the air world that I will suggest for anyone to utilize in a daily or interdaily basis. And why? So many things, but let's start. For one, as I said, it's a phytochemical, and as so many phytochemicals, it alters how our body relates with other things, especially with toxins. And there again, if you remember from my previous episodes and from epigenetics, one of the things that alter most our body and let it suffer and let it age and let it not work as it's supposed to and let it age and damage our organs is the liberation of free radicals. And once we have free radicals, the more we have them and the less we get rid of them, the more inflamed we are, the more sick we can get, the more our organs don't work properly, and alongside any cell around our membrane or substance that we need to produce. So, sulforaphane number one, it helps not only eradicate free radicals, but it helps them in their lifespan per se. So while we ingest sulforaphane, we have a better lifespan from our cells, and that means less free radicals in our body, and that means that we have less toxins. So it helps with toxicity in our body, and we're gonna explain later how and some little examples in that alongside. So number one, if it helps us with the liberation of free radicals, what do you think happens next, right? And yes, exactly that. And that's why I take it, and that's why I eat my broccoli almost every day, or my cauliflower. And actually I had this cauliflower in a certain venue that I loved so much. So maybe one day I will tweak that recipe because it was really delicious. But anyhow, when you start ingesting broccoli or cauliflower or any cruciferous on a daily basis or supplemented with it, especially sulforaphane, you're gonna see the decrease of free radicals inside your body. So repair is gonna be faster, toxicity is gonna be less, and therefore your organs and the whole systems inside your body are gonna work better. And that's what we want, right? Okay, let's go further. So yes, so if we decrease free radicals, what also can help parallelly, it reduces inflammation. Yes, and when we have less inflammation, we have less problems in our whole body, less metabolic disease, less cardiovascular diseases, less cancer. You already know that. The more inflamed and consistently inflamed our body is in certain body, the more prone we are to develop any cancer. So the less inflammatory we can have in any of these supplementations and substances that we can ingest, the better our body is gonna react, and therefore, let's go further. It helps reduce our levels of inflammation. Of course, it would also reduce our levels of cancer or cancer, let's say, induced elements. So it acts so many ways or so many pathways with how it stops cancer right away. First of all, with free radicals. The less free radicals we have, the less erroneous our body reacts, correct? And the less erroneous our cells reacts. So it helps repair the cells that are behaving a little erroneously and miscommunicating. But also, not only that, with free radicals, reduces the level of inflammation. So wherever you have inflammatory problems, it's gonna help diminish them and therefore not cause problems that can develop in cancer. But also, what does greatly, it stops carcinogens. So whenever there is a carcinogen inside our body, it stops it right away. It tells them, okay, you don't belong here, get out, go away, we don't want you here. And that's how, one of the many ways, it stops the development of cancer. Also, in any cell that already has cancerous problems, cancerous cells, or cancerous behavior, it stops us right there. It doesn't allow this to override other healthy cells. So it helps, and it helps eradicate or not promote tumor cell growth. So that's why it's so good to have sulforaphane in a daily basis. Although there's gonna be some talk that consuming broccoli each day, every day, or having sulforaphane into your dietary supplementation daily could develop thyroid problems, but we're gonna talk that about that in another episode. In the meantime, if you don't want to suffer about that, and if you already have problems or you think you have, you can always consume the foods directly interdaily and then use the supplements interdaily, so mix and match, and then or only the weekends. Therefore, you can have the levels of sulforaphane inside your body to protect you against free radicals, against and against inflammation, and against cancer. And so if we're relating all of this, what it's doing inside our body is lowering the levels of oxidation, because everything is related, as you might know by now. So at lowering the levels of oxidation in our body, yes, everything's gonna work smoother, better, faster. And also, therefore, and there is a correlation with something I love so much, and you already might know, with glutathione. So there are gonna be better levels of glutathione inside our brain when you consume sulforaphane. So yes, what glutathione is, we already know, is that bigger, the CEO, the head of chief, the chief of staff of all where antioxidants is a major antioxidant in our body. So when we have more glutathione, then our body gets repaired, our body gets healthier, we can produce what's good for our body. And therefore, consuming sulforaphane, it will increase, especially in moments of depletion of the glutathione. So if you have had, and then let me go further, whenever you consume antibiotics or you consume chemicals that are not intended to be naturally in our body, guess what? Our levels of glutathione depletes, and our levels of sulforaphane also decrease if we consume these substances. If we consume broccoli sprouts, Brussels sprouts, or sulforaphane supplementation. So whenever you want to ingest and be healthy with these substances, I recommend you to avoid antibiotics, I recommend you to avoid sugar, and I recommend you to avoid any chemical that is not naturally derived from the natural world. So the more synthetic things are, the less capacity for sulforaphane to be bioavailable in your body. Okay, let's go further because there are so many things. It protects your DNA. So we talk about genetics, epigenetics. So what sulforaphane does at lowering the levels of free radicals and lowering the levels of oxidation, it helps protect the genome that we have. It helps protect the DNA to not be erroneous again. So to not damage our DNA, we can consume sulforaphane, and then it's correlated, but any toxicity involved with the outside world, like pollution, it helps it diminish it, and we're going to talk a little example later. But so all these ways, sulforaphane acts fast and acts immediately in our body. So my trick on the way of consumption, if you don't want to use the supplement, let's just buy broccoli sprouts. I love broccolis, the big heads of broccolis. I love the broccoli buds and flowers. But if you want to have a trick and you want to have fast and immediately effect of sulforaphanes and higher levels of sulforaphane in your body, the best option is to buy and eat directly broccoli sprouts. So broccoli sprouts come in little containers and usually fresh, so you can pour them on top of anything, literally anything. The taste is very nice, it's very easy to chew, to eat, so you can just grab them like a snack or mix them with your nuts or mix them with some flower seeds or kernels or whatsoever. You can put it on top of your meat, on top of your salmon, on top of anything you eat. So if you're eating something that is not that healthy, just put broccoli sprouts on top of it, and it will help you contain the problem that is gonna give you that bad food and help you release so many good things in your body to not get free radicals, inflammation, oxidation, and whatsoever. Slash right here, same happens when you wanna eat a hot dog. And yes, this week I ate one. So whenever you crave for something as processed as a hot dog, on top you should put a lot of sauerkraut, and that's the trick. Sauerkraut brings a lot of the good bacteria in our body. It helps with levels of inflammation too, and it helps with digestion. So whenever you consume, if you're gonna choose between bad foods, try to get a hot dog with a lot of sauerkraut, and then there is kind of some remedy. There is no full remedy at it. It's still a processed food, so still you're gonna get free radicals in your body, and still you're gonna get the toxins and whatever problem those toxins bring to the body. But that's a simply fast way when you wanna crave for something bad. Just put on top the sauerkraut. Same with Brussels sprouts. If you can keep Brussels sprouts on your fridge or wherever you are fresh, and you can put it on top of anything you eat, you are gonna become healthier right away. Do that almost every day. So try to always consume a little. A little spoon is fine. You can do two, but supplementation, we're gonna talk about dosage later. But that's a little trick if you consume natural foods as I do. So another thing, as I mentioned before, it may slow tumor growth and reduces the ability of cancerous cells to multiply, reduce the ability of spread to other parts of your body. And if we talk about this, I'm gonna tell you, I mentioned right now, it helps, and it's been studies that it can help, in this case, with colon cancer, prostate cancer, breast tissue, lung tissue, and so on. So it helps in many areas where cancer can be developing. So the consumption of sulforaphane is my number one recommended from the plant world to not develop these problems. And if you remember, and if you watch one of my episodes when I was talking about supplementations overall, I think it's my episode number 8, I mentioned sulforaphane and to who I recommend, and I will link this right now to say it once again. I recommend to ingest sulforaphane as soon as you know you have been removed of anything inside your body. So let's say they removed something inside you, any of your organs, the appendix or whatsoever, some part of whatever other organ transplant, and so on, ovaries, and so on. Whenever you have been removed of anything inside you, or when you have had a bigger operation, let's say hip replacement, when they put any metal inside you, and whenever you have these tweaks that are very aggressive to your body, in the meaning that is not natural as it was born. So whenever you have this kind of surgeries, operations that had to be done, I would recommend to any of these people to start supplementing with sulforaphane as soon as this surgery procedure is being done. Why? Because in this way, you help, number one, not create cancerous or damaging erroneous cells inside your body, especially in the area surrounding the organ removal. Because when you remove something, the body still is not adequate to know what's happening. So sometimes these cells can misbehave, can miscommunicate, and can develop certain problems as per se at the end cancer. But if you don't want that, you start taking sulforaphane supplementation or consuming these cruciferous compounds and that have this sulforaphane, and you will help your body naturally accept that this organ or this part or this metal that is being implemented is there, and therefore it has to be there and it's okay, or it has not to be there and it's okay. So either way, when you add something to your body that is not natural, or when you remove something that is not natural to your body to not have it, sulforaphane helps protect those areas are surrounding, to tell them it's okay, behave as you behaved before, and don't be cancerous, don't be erroneous, don't be senescent cell, don't die. And therefore, I recommend this to any person having these kind of procedures to start this supplementation or start ingesting these foods naturally. It will help your body tremendously. It will help your body accept whatever is being put inside you. Okay, let's go along. What else I want to say? Okay, in the way of consumption, now that we're talking how to eat it if it's not a supplement, I always say that raw foods are the best. There are cases that is different. In the case of tomatoes, you better have them a little bit cooked so to develop more lycopene, and also with mushrooms to get more help with the protection of UV radiation. But in the case of broccoli and many vegetables, I like them to be consumed raw, because when you consume them raw, you get best levels of the nutrients that they have and the best levels of compound, and like this one, sulforaphane. So the raw, the better for this kind of crucifers. Although, if you think broccoli is too hard to chew or to digest, steam them 1 to 3 minutes, no more. So at least these heads or flowers get a little softer, and they are still in the higher levels of sulforaphane. The more you cook them, the less sulforaphane and dim, that is another thing I will another episode, will lower the levels, so it will be less effective. In that way, broccoli sprouts, when you consume them and they're raw, they taste softly, they taste very nice. So the easier option for you will be just buy broccoli sprouts directly if you don't want to deal with cauliflower or broccoli and whatsoever and the harshness of them. Anyway, I already mentioned that. And talking about supplementation and raw food and veggies per se, I always recommend the natural options go first. So whenever you have in your diet the consumption of natural foods that have phytochemicals like these or any other compounds that help your body, it's better to eat them naturally. But we know that the natural world, because how things are being produced right now and how the soil is so rich of the many nutrients that they had before due to everything they put on the air or on the soil per se, and we don't have that much high level of nutrients as it was 20, 30, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. So it's always better to add some supplementation. In the case of sulforaphane, consuming both together is also my best recommendation. And at the end, I will tell you the dosage when you wanna be consuming supplementation per se as a pill or as a powder or as a liquid, because there are some liquids that you can drink. Anyway, let's go on. How sulforaphane works. So sulforaphane that comes from all these plants, and especially from broccoli, and in higher levels from the seeds and the sprouts. Sulforaphane has a precursor that is called glucoraphanin. Glucoraphanin that converts to sulforaphane, it's more bioactive than sulforaphane per se. Let's say it's glucoraphanin, it's more stable. So when you have it, it's easier for the body to implement it in it and convert it to sulforaphane. Glucoraphanin needs something active to help it develop into sulforaphane. So, but this procedure of being active in our body is way different from plants and is different from animals. From plants goes directly with certain enzymes and whatsoever. But the trick here for us to develop good sulforaphane levels from glucoraphanin is, and it goes a long way sauerkraut, having good bacteria in your gut. So that's the trick. To better absorb sulforaphane levels in our body, we need good bacteria in our gastrointestinal tract. So yes, before thinking why it's not working and why they say it's not good in humans, it is not because the sulforaphane per se, the bioavailability of it, it is because we need a clean gut. We need a healthy gut. And we already talked before that for healthy gut, for a healthy microbiome in our gut, we need to implement other certain foods like sauerkraut and any kimchi, kefir, and Greek yogurt with no sugar, and probiotics. Probiotics and prebiotics will always help to have a clean gut, and a healthier gut with healthier bacteria will help you increment your levels of sulforaphane when it's consumed, or as with glucoraphamine. Anyway, this glucoraphamine needs the activation of myrosinase. So we have them together. We can then produce, and a clean bacteria with good healthy bacteria, we can produce our cells sulforaphane. So there are two ways: you consume directly sulforaphane, or you consume any supplementation that has glucoraphamine plus myrosinase that is active. When they are together, then, and we have good bacteria, then we have sulforaphane levels incremented inside our body and acting right away. Okay, let's go now a little further with cancer. It acts as a chemoprotective. So it has these properties, as we said before. How it works in many different pathways and in many different stages of cancer. So it's very good with colon cancer, bladder cancer, prostate cancer. And methionine is the biogenic precursor of glucoraphamine. So when we have this change that is developed inside our body, we can then have more sulforaphane active and bioavailable in our body, and that's what we want. All right. There is here studies that says that sulforaphane active in animal carcinogenesis models helps the levels of all these cancerous cells to be reduced in mammals, and it's carried by the sulforaphane that it helps out with the bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract. So that's how it works for us as well. We need a clean, healthy bacteria so we can avoid cancer by consuming sulforaphane. Very easy, right? start having some kimchi, some kombucha, some kefir, some sauerkraut, or just get probiotics from your drugstore that are in high levels, more than 2 billion, I would recommend. All right. Also, it's a natural activator of NRF2 signaling. When NRF2 dependent effects have been linked to anti-inflammatory effects, and these broccoli-based glucoraphamine and sulforaphane-rich preparations have been shown to accelerate the detoxification and excretion of potentially carcinogenic food contaminants and air pollutants, the reduction in cancer risk by avoiding the exposure of pollution. Excretion of, let's say, examples, benzene and acrolein by 20 to 50%, consuming broccoli sprouts derived beverage. So right there you have, if you can reduce benzene levels, okay, sign me up, right? I don't think there is other thing that I have read that can do that. So with pollutants, if you are in areas that there is a lot of pollution, air, and some other sorts of pollution, sulforaphane will help you reduce those levels of toxicity, studies have shown. Let's go also. There is also another trick. It also helps with certain bacteria, like, okay, let me go back here because I have it somewhere, and it's really like very good for the natural way of eradicating it. And let me find it because I have so many things here written, but if I don't find it, let's go to another thing, because there are so many ways this sulforaphane helps. And let me find it. Why I don't find it right now? All right, but let me go further. So we go, it will come along with certain infections, but the global gene expression profiling of consuming broccoli-rich diets for 6 to 12 months, it helps to transcriptional changes in signaling pathways involved in inflammation and carcinogenesis in prostate tissue, altered in subjects receiving glucoraphanin-rich diets. Okay, so I mentioned already that increases the levels of glutathione in the brain. It helps protect, and then it's a best friend with astaxanthin too. It helps protect against skin erythema caused by exposure to ultraviolet radiation. So there you have it, another tweak for having healthy, not damaging skin. Also, it helps protect, same as my dear astaxanthin, helps protect and helps reduce levels of LDL cholesterol in plasma. So for all my people having problems, cardiovascular problems, problems with diabetes, all these not regulated organisms that you have been developing, it will help you lower the levels of LDL. All right. Also decreases the levels of fasting glucose and glycated hemoglobin in obese patients with dysregulated type 2 diabetes. So why? Because it also helps with insulin resistance. So same as my other favorite supplementations. Once you can have this kind of natural compounds that help you regulate your insulin and help control the insulin resistance, then you're gonna have better ways to combat diabetes type 2, and any metabolic syndrome you might be having. All right, improves, and this is also great in the neurodegenerative and neuro conditions that we might see in our kids. It helps with autism disorder. How? Improves social interaction, behavior, verbal communication in young men with autism spectrum disorder. So, sulforaphane taken and ingested daily will help social capabilities with children and adults having this condition of autism. And if you don't have this condition, just try having supplementation of sulforaphane, and maybe you become more social. Not on TikTok, but in real life. That's what we want, right? So let's try it before a date, before going to the club, before going to anywhere where you gather with a lot of new people. Try sulforaphane and let's see if it works. Let me know. All right. Broccoli sprouts helps in the prevention of aflatoxin, which is the toxin from stored substances from corn and peanuts. So if you suffer of aflatoxin, it might be good to just have some Sfn alongside, or eat broccoli sprouts. All right. Also helps on the detoxification of volatile organic air pollutants, as we said. Effect on shear stress in chondrocytes. So the more broccoli we consume, the more isothiocyanate uptake in the joints. So you will have better, smoother joints with concomitant changes in them. So if you have these joint problems, sulforaphane will alleviate and reduce these symptoms. Also, it helps with asthma and atopic allergies responses. So the more sulforaphane consumption, the less dramatic the symptoms of asthma or allergy problems you're gonna have. It also, as I mentioned before, reduces the biomarkers in cancer in breast tissue, lung, gastric, colorectal, prostate, skin, head and neck, and liver. And we talked about LDL already, but also it helps with cardiovascular diseases. So it affects in the biomarkers of blood pressure and flow meditation dilation and plasma metabolite biomarkers. So there are 3 ways that helps with cardiovascular diseases. It also helps, as I mentioned, with diabetes and metabolic syndromes. Effects on reduced gluconeogenesis, inflammatory markers, and insulin resistance. My God, I mean, it's the same as not as the something has been working through different body organs, through different body systems, through different body pathways. So the more pathways and the more organs and the more systems it can induce, help the better a supplement is. And that's why I recommend it so much alongside with NAC and astaxanthin. Let's continue. It helps with the upregulation of key chemoprotective enzymes, as we said. So it not only works with the reparation or the protection of the DNA to not get damaged, it also helps with the enzymes that promote or not promote cancer. So the less we have this proliferation of carcinogens and cancerous cells, the better. And that's how our sulforaphane Sfn works. And here it goes. It helps with many bacteria, but it helps with Helicobacter pylori infections. So it reduces them and the colonization in gastric and inflammation tissues. So if you have this problem, start with Sfn right away, or you think you will develop consistently because of your area, the foods that you eat, and whatsoever is common. Having broccoli sprouts consumed, or having broccoli or any cruciferous, or just a supplementation of Sfn, it will help you not develop or reduce the levels of Helicobacter pylori. There you have it. Also helps in liver functions and also helps with neurodegenerative conditions, effects on GSH levels, and mapping GSH. So we already talked about before, people with dementia, people with Parkinson, people with Alzheimer. It's also good to have some sulforaphane. It lowers the levels of GSH. And it helps in certain specific brain regions. It also helps with neurodevelopmental conditions, as we said, autism, but also schizophrenia and other type of psychosis. So if you know anyone already diagnosed with any type of psychosis, schizophrenia, or autism, it's good to help them ingest some broccoli sprouts, cruciferous foods, or have been supplemented with sulforaphane beverage, powder, or pills. All right, it also helps with sickle cell disease. And as we mentioned, and about how to consume it, I always recommend the natural way, eating the foods, especially broccoli sprouts, pour them on anything, and you are good to go. But if not, one of the ways, and especially how trials are being conducted, is with beverage that contain per se sulforaphane, active levels of sulforaphane, or let's say sulforaphane per se, or active levels of myrosinase with glucoraphanin. So when they have them both and myrosinase is active, then you can get sulforaphane or just that drink of sulforaphane per se. Although if you do pills, it's the same way. And there are pills, and I've done a little bit of research of some of them, and I won't give brands, but I would like, if you want to buy the supplementation per se, get those with seed broccoli extract, because as I mentioned, seeds and sprouts have the highest levels of sulforaphane, or that contain a certain percentage of glucoraphanin with myrosinase activation. from broccoli extract. All right. Also, some of them might contain DIM, and I love DIM so much too, but that will be another episode. But as long as you see some from 10% and up of glucoraphanin with myrosinase active, or it is coming from the seeds of broccoli or the sprouts of broccoli extract, I will recommend those options first than any other. And the more compounds you find, the more other phytochemicals added to the supplementation, the better, because in the plant world everything works all together. So when you consume the broccoli, it's not only the sulforaphane working, it's any other of the phytochemicals and nutrients that are working alongside. So as it's been shown, the research says that they still don't know how SNN works per se, and if it's helped with another compound that the broccoli has inside, because there are millions of it. But that's why when you get supplements that are only one thing, you might not get the full benefit. So the more compounds or nutrients or phytochemicals added that are naturally produced, the better. All right. Now, dosage. I will say that my suggestion for anyone, if you want to do it daily or if you want to do it interdaily, alongside with eating the natural foods, it will be from 150 to 300 milligrams, and that's it, no more. Okay, because it's also bioavailable, and there have some been trials in animals that when given high doses, there are side effects. Of course, it will be very much of consuming as the sulforaphane to have those effects, but I will mention them. There have been, let me see if I find them. There have been cases of sedation, hypothermia, impaired motor coordination, decreased skeletal muscle strength, and death. And that happened with mice, of course. But the natural and the neutral way to consume it for me will be from 150 to 300 milligrams naturally supplementation added, right? All right. Broccoli-based preparations consist almost either of glucoraphanin, sulforaphane, or glucoraphanin with added active myrosinase. Raw, cooked, or dry vegetables themselves or extras of broccoli seeds or sprouts. And that's how you will find them in the market. Nothing artificial, please. Nothing that says blends or artificial flavor whatsoever. Read the labels, read where they come from, read the ingredients. Okay. The bioavailability changed dramatically as a function of the source material. So how it is or how bioactive is. And it also depends, as I mentioned, the host factor. So any polymorphisms on epigenetic problems that we have, we're going to have less absorption as the microbiome that we have. So the host microbiome interaction also plays an important role. So whenever you want to start consuming this, also start taking your probiotics or eating these foods full of prebiotics or probiotics, and it will help you add more levels of sulforaphane in your body, make it more bioavailable to you. All right, people that who shouldn't have it is people having medications that are anticonvulsant. So in those cases, I would recommend not to consume the supplementation per se. You can eat the broccolis, you can eat the natural foods, but we can stop avoiding and stop trying to not have them as a supplement unless consulted with your doctor. But if you suffer of convulsion and you are taking medication for it, please avoid taking this supplementation unless you have certain ways your doctor can suggest. All right. Talking sulforaphane per se, how it acts with the DNA, inhibits carcinogens from binding to the DNA. So it tells them, bye, you're not here. It's a way to get them right. And this way, it's also how it helps the inflammatory effects, the anti-inflammation. And therefore, the cancer prevention. It decreases the cell growth in breast tissue. It helps with social responsiveness. It protects against heart disease. And also with diabetes, maintaining healthy cells in genes and insulin resistant. Decrease in serum insulin concentration are resistant in these receiving when you start doing 10 grams per day. So there you have it. My recommendation, the raw, the better for the foods. If you consume it, broccoli sprouts any day on anything, it will be the best option. Broccoli sprouts have to 10 to 30 times more sulforaphane than the broccoli head per se, so it's easier to consume. You have just a little spoon and you will supplement yourself greatly with sulforaphane and have all these effects. We can also have them in other foods, as I mentioned. Kale is also it also contains levels of sulforaphane. Cabbage, for people that like cabbage, bok choy, and whatsoever, all the cruciferous in the plant world are welcome. And thanks so much for listening to this episode. I know that it's a new compound that I've talked about. I know it's not such as common as other, but to me it's so important because, as I mentioned, it helps in so many levels: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, lowers the levels of LDL, helps with neurodegenerative problems, neurodamaging conditions too. It helps with cancer. It helps with repairing DNA, with maintaining DNA. It helps with so many things. It's an antioxidant. It helps with free radicals, and it helps with everything, and it helps increments the levels of glutathione. That's why I love it so much. It's my number 3 that I would recommend to almost anyone, and I hope you start consuming it. Do your research, see if you buy the food first, use the supplement, use both, and let me know how it goes well to you. For those people that want to socialize more, also have it. So if it helps with autism, problems of social behavior, it might help with any regular. So I hope you become the best you, and I see you soon.